Good morning. Welcome to News Now. My name is Paul Ruppel. Hope your Thursday is off to a good start. You're looking live at Philadelphia. This is 5th and Market Streets outside our studios at 4th and Market. You see we're off to a very soggy start. Launch to reopen there. Let's get you a look at radar here. You're looking at ultimate Doppler. You see a batch of heavy rain just pushed through the area, through the city, and is now moving into New Jersey. Some more heavy rain down at the shore right now. If you look all the way out to the left, you'll see that's some snow falling out in western Pennsylvania. It's the kind of day where I know it's a little over a week away, but Punxsutawney Phil would not want to be popping out of the ground there to get a look around. It's snowing pretty heavily there, it looks like, right now. We're going to get you more information on the forecast. A live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. It's also windy out there. We've got some warnings, some watches and advisories around. We'll get you more information on those as we go through the day. First, I'm going to get you started with some national news. A surprise move from President Trump. He's now backing down from a standoff over the State of the Union address. The speech is being delayed at the request of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader has more this morning on a rare presidential concession.
Surprise move from President Trump. I guess some of us might call it a surprise. Now back down from he's now backing down a little bit from last night about 8 o'clock, when there seemed to be a real tough standoff over the State of the Union address, which is supposed to happen next Tuesday night. And
the speech is being delayed at the request of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And she's hoping, because she was the last to respond when it came to the back and forth of the tweets, Doug, that maybe their votes today, there's 2 votes happening today, maybe one of them will be successful, but again, it's not likely, is it?
Not too likely. And look, as far as the State of the Union is concerned, did not see this coming. I think a lot of people were really surprised last night with the president's tweet.
Who controls the House of Representatives, where President Trump was initially scheduled to speak next week for the State of the Union address? Make no mistake, it is Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, who didn't want him there. From the president on Twitter last night, this is her prerogative. I will do the address when the shutdown is over. It was a shocking move because this had appeared to be an epic standoff in the making between Trump and Pelosi, with the speaker first inviting the president to speak and then changing her mind, saying the State of the Union shouldn't happen during a government shutdown. The White House was reportedly considering other venues when the president suddenly changed course, a decision that Washington is still digesting this morning.
I think he's going to honor the House, and I think it puts pressure to get us back in, get the government back open.
The pressure has been building over the shutdown, closing in on 5 weeks now. Federal workers protested on Capitol Hill yesterday. And a new Fox News poll shows that a majority of voters, 51%, blame the president for the shutdown. 34% hold Democrats responsible.
All right, now, as we mentioned, the Senate today is going to see some activity of some kind. We think there are going to be a couple of votes in the Senate on a Republican plan to open the government, on a Democratic plan to open the government, but no one around here is really holding their breath for either of these plans.
All right, who did it? Who took Speaker Pelosi's phone, and who took the president's phone away from them?
Yeah, you know,
it doesn't seem like both of them.
Here's the thing. You got to figure that when Pelosi and her staff saw that the president's tweet last night, they were like, okay, what's going on here? Like,
right.
Is
nice.
something happening here? Is this, you know, so is it a strategic retreat on the part of the president? Is there kind of a 1-2 punch here and we're waiting for the second one? We don't know, but it's a surprising move.
Or maybe the facts are the facts. There's not a place that's as, important in history. It's going to get as much attention. I mean, it does have the pomp and circumstance.
And the president said as much in his tweet that he wants to hold out for that venue, and there's a lot to be said for that. But on the other hand, look, he would have gotten a ton of attention if he'd kind of flipped the script on this whole thing and turned it into a rally in some other state.
That's true.
Like, yeah, tons of people out on the, well, wherever they would have done it. It kind of puts the onus back on her, doesn't it? Okay. All right.
And maybe that's what they were thinking.
I think that's what it is. All right. Thanks, Doug. See you tomorrow. 7:13. No.
That was Fox's Doug Luzader reporting the latest on the State of the Union. Will it or won't it happen? Sounds like it will happen, but not until after the standoff. The partial government shutdown. Police are looking for what led a former prison guard trainee to open fire inside a Florida bank, killing 5 people. It happened yesterday around noon inside a SunTrust bank in Sebring, just south of Kissimmee, Florida. Investigators say 21-year-old Zephan Zaver called police to report the shooting. After negotiations fell through, SWAT officers stormed the bank, arresting Zaver. Police haven't released the names of the victims. Coworkers and friends are still on edge.
I'm still shaking. I'm waiting for the names to come up and see if it's her, so I can go to their family and send my condolences.
You've suffered a significant loss at the hands of a senseless criminal doing a senseless crime.
Police say the shooter worked as a prison guard trainee from November until 2 weeks ago when he quit. There will be another press conference later today. I believe that's at 11 a.m. We will try to bring that to you either live or on tape delay, but we'll try and get you the latest on that national story and tragedy out of Highland County, Florida. President Trump's ex-lawyer, Michael Cohen, has postponed his highly anticipated congressional testimony due to ongoing threats by the president and his legal team. That's what his lawyers wrote in a note to the Democratic committee where he was to speak. Cohen was set to appear before the House Oversight Committee on February 7th. A little bit of video of Cohen here. The president responded to the accusation, saying Cohen has, quote, only been threatened by the truth, end quote. Cohen was recently sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to several crimes, including lying to Congress about the president's past business dealings in Russia. Hulu's lowering prices, and that comes on the heels of Netflix announcing that they'd raised theirs. And bad news if you love these Valentine's Day candies, Sweethearts. The Necco Sweethearts. Fox Business Network's Tracy Carrasco has more in today's Morning Business Outlook.
Earnings power stocks higher, pushing the Dow up 171 points on Wednesday. Dow component Intel and Starbucks are a few of the big names reporting earnings on Thursday. A week after Netflix raised its prices, Hulu says it's cutting the price of its most popular online streaming plan. Hulu will now charge $5.99 per month for its basic entry-level video-on-demand service, down from $7.99. Hulu is, however, hiking prices across its other subscription tiers. Hulu Live TV, a cable TV-like package, will now cost $5 more per month at $44.99. The new changes take effect February 26th. Sweethearts candies will not be on store shelves this Valentine's Day. The company that makes the candy, the New England Confectionery Company, otherwise known as Necco, went out of business last July. It was later bought in an auction by Round Hill Investments, who then sold the company to Spangler Candy Company in September. And unfortunately, Spangler did not have enough time to produce a large number of Sweethearts. But according to its CEO, the beloved candy will be back next year. For more, log on to foxbusiness.com. In New York, I'm Tracy Carrasco.
And we'll take a quick look at the stock market here. Market opening down about 50 points at this time. Only about 0.2 of a percentage point. Dow Jones Industrial is at 24,528 at this moment. I see we are going to be coming up on a live event soon. Let me get you some information. This is Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, both Democrats from Virginia, They're expected to hold a press conference at Ronald Reagan National Airport to highlight the effects of the ongoing government shutdown on the region's airports and airport workers. It looks like Senator Warner is there shaking hands with some of them. Can't tell if that's Senator Kaine. There, it looks like he's moving down the line as well. We'll take you there in a couple moments when that gets underway. Actually, it looks like Senator Warner's setting up to speak. Let's listen in and hear what they have to say.
Welcome to day 34 of Groundhog's Day. 34 days. 34 days. I think when we think back, and Donald Trump said in the middle of December that he would be proud to own this shutdown, that he thought it would go for weeks or months or even years, that no rational person, Democrat, Republican, Independent, no rational worker thought he was doing anything other than just being Trumpian in his overstatements. Yet here we are 34 days later, and I'm going to make a few comments, but amongst the many, many, many outrageous, disgraceful things that have come out of this administration is, in these 34 days, the President of the United States has gone and done a photo op at the border. He's given speeches. He's tweeted against virtually everyone that doesn't agree with him on every subject. But in those 34 days, neither Donald Trump, Mike Pence, or any individual in that White House has had the common decency to sit down and listen to the stories of the 800,000 federal workers, 380,000 of which are furloughed, 450,000 of which are continuing to work without pay, and in some cases, in terms of our air traffic controllers, not just work a full shift, but overtime without pay. And as we made our comment yesterday when we were at a Port City brewery, where that brewery cannot get new products to market because of the shutdown, when we had a restaurant owner whose business is down 50% since the shutdown, when I had a huge appeal from folks who run the Smithsonian about all of the cafeteria workers and janitors at the Smithsonian who are all contractors who, under current law, and Tim and I have legislation that would change this, even when the government's reopened, would get Zippo in terms of back pay or any recognition. Today, we're focusing on the aviation industry. Aviation workers in Virginia and across the country are hardworking and dedicated to making sure that as passengers here at National or Dulles or BWI, or for that matter, any airport around the nation, are flying, that they keep those passengers safe. We have, because of the work of the individuals behind us, the safest air systems in the world. But right now, 40% of FAA workers are furloughed, and thousands, as I mentioned of air traffic controllers and others are working without pay. The truth is, and I don't know if, where's Paul Rinaldi. Paul Rinaldi, when I first got this job, managed to scare the hell out of me about the need to make sure we have well-trained air traffic controllers always on duty. And the fact is, maintaining the air traffic safety with a volume of air traffic, particularly coming into our airports, is stressful enough work on its own without having to worry about spending 30% of your time worrying about whether you're going to be able to pay your mortgage or your kids' tuition. It's just not the workers, though, who are hurting because of the shutdown. Staff and resource shortages lead to flight delays and cancellations, which hurts travelers, businesses, and the regional economies across the country. Let's not underestimate what we're talking about here. There are 12 million aviation-related jobs in the aviation sector, and that contributes over $1.5 trillion each year to the U.S. economy. Continuing this shutdown will cripple our national aviation safety, it will cripple our system, and it will provide more than $1 trillion hit to our economy. The shutdown is bad enough for safety. The truth is as well that during the shutdown, when we think about the need to keep the funnel coming of additional workers, that funnel of training is shut down as well. And as we look around at airports around the country, there are 6,300 projects going on at airports around the country, many of them safety related, that have all been stalled by the shutdown. And when the shutdown ends, it's not like you can immediately, the day after, get back to normal. It will take a 45 to 60-day delay, even after the shutdown, to really get us back on these safety projects to business as usual. Truth is, the FAA, with those 40% of the workers furloughed, may take weeks to get all their workers returned. Now, like my friend Tim Kaine, over the last few weeks, and we've been doing a variety of these events, we've heard from federal workers, contractors, we've heard from folks who run restaurants that are adjacent to federal facilities, who are worried about paying the mortgages, about paying their child care expenses. One woman, an air traffic controller, told me that she had to send her infant child away because her mom had to go back to her house and she didn't have the money to pay the babysitting bills. So a mom, 10-week-old child, had to send that child to a third relative just to get by. And again, through these 33 days, this president has refused to sit down and meet with any federal worker. The truth is, for a president, I have never seen a president with so little empathy. Although I guess we should not be surprised with an individual who has had a business history of burning contractors, breaking his word with all of the previous business deals. It takes a certain record of having the number of bankruptcies, the number of failed businesses, and the fact that virtually everyone in the financial sector in New York will not do business with Donald Trump. That same slash and burn mentality he's brought to this government shutdown. Now, this week, I introduced some legislation. I know there'll be a variety of legislation that would try to end these shutdowns once and for all. The truth is, if Congress and White House can't find a way to fund the government, then frankly, on future shutdowns, only Congress and the White House should go into a shutdown. So our legislation would say, if you come to an impasse, the government continues to be funded at its existing rate. It's called a continuing resolution. And the only parts of the government that would be shut down, that would require action to be reopened, and I say this with some trepidation with my staff and Tim's staff here, but the only folks that would actually have to feel the pain would be the legislators, their congressional staff, and the White House and the White House staff. Because I can bet you, if all of our congressional staff and all that White House staff had gone for 33 days without pay, this shutdown would be over. Final point I want to make is just this.
Looks like our feed is dropping a little bit there. We'll get you right back out to that event if it comes back. You heard Senator Warner talking a little bit about some of the problems that are being encountered by the employees. I can tell you a little bit about the economic impact. The government shutdown is now having a rippling effect across major sectors of the economy. I was going to read this to you over in the market, but that shuts down too. Fox News correspondent Jillian Turner reported last night that from U.S. businesses to national security, even law enforcement, the partial shutdown is stretching beyond the federal government. FBI Agents Association, repping 14,000 members, says the shutdown is impacting individual employees and undermining essential FBI operations.
Of other folks who are being affected, I believe they are actual American.
More of that.
I'd like to turn over the podium now to my dear friend.
It could be due to the weather.
And introduce our following speaker, Senator Kaine.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to all of you for coming. And I especially want to thank all these fantastic members of our aviation community for the work that they do every day, for the suffering they've undergone for the last 34 days, and for standing here not only on their own behalf, but on behalf of all that they work with. If I were one of them, if I were one of the 51,000 TSA agents who were forced to work without pay, if I were one of the 14,000 air traffic controllers forced to work without pay, if I was one of the 11,000 professional aviation safety specialists forced to work without pay, if I were one of their family members, indeed, if I were one of the 800-plus thousand federal workers who are either furloughed or forced to work without pay, I would have some questions. Why is my country doing this to me? Why is my country punishing me just because I volunteered to work in a profession to keep our skies and our citizens safe? Why does my country want to take my paycheck away and when I'm supposed to be thinking about safety, inject both feelings of disrespect from my country but also financial and mental anxiety? Why does my country want to do that to me when I'm doing a safety job? Why in a debate about border security does my president decide he wants to punish the aviation sector? Why, if it is about security, the president says this is all about safety and security, why would he take paychecks away from air traffic controllers and TSA agents whose job is to provide security, much less DEA, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, Coast Guard, frontline security professionals? Is this a debate about safety and security? If so, why would they take my money away? Why, when Congress has now passed in the a check to each of these people furlough is therefore.
Apologies, it looks like the rain is getting us a little bit here on our satellite dishes. I'm seeing both shots drop when they go down, so I think that's what the problem is here. I can tell you a little bit more about what I was just mentioning, the economic impact of the shutdown. While Justice Department prosecutors say the nation's crime solvers are at a virtual standstill, DNA testing in some cases is not being timely performed. Some trial subpoenas are not being served. Crime investigations and grand jury panels are slowing down while perpetrators remain at large. The shutdown is also hurting the government's national security apparatus. At sea, the Coast Guard, the only branch of the military not receiving pay, says members of the armed forces should not be expected to shoulder this burden. New numbers from the TSA have experts predicting chaos in the friendly skies. Unscheduled absences among screeners are double what they were at this time last year, with employees using sick leave and reporting they're unable to work due to financial stress. In cyberspace, top cyberspace agencies warn the U.S. government is now more vulnerable to foreign hacks, terrorism, and cyber criminals than ever before. When it comes to American business, the hardest hit agencies in terms of personnel are the IRS, with a whopping 42% of staff furloughed. The Commerce Department, with 31% of its staff furloughed, has so far delayed publication of key economic data that companies rely on to make decisions, including figures for new home sales, housing construction, GDP, inflation, and personal income and spending. All these problems with the paper trail have real-life consequences for businesses large and small. As of last night, Wednesday night, the White House was asking for a list of government programs that will be impacted if the shutdown continues into March. Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney has tasked federal agencies with providing their input for President Trump by no later than Friday. So it doesn't look like that news conference is coming back to us at this moment, but we'll try to, there's a way we can get a backup for some other events that may be occurring later this morning. This would be a good time to get you to some local news. Here are some reports we have. Fox 29 Steve Keeley was out on this one this morning. A suspected road rage incident ended with a man getting shot in White Marsh Township, and police are still looking for the gunman. And there's been a break in the case. State police have released details about the getaway car. Steve was live at the Pennsylvania State Police Barracks this morning in Winfield Heights. This is a report he filed for us, so we can bring it to you and help spread the word about the case here and hopefully get someone in custody soon.
A working theory now is that the 63-year-old man driving a big, shiny Toyota Tundra pickup truck in the left lane. A working theory now is that the 63-year-old man driving a big, shiny Toyota Tundra pickup truck in the left lane here on Route 309 at 9:27 last night, when a driver, possibly enraged that the 63-year-old would not move over out of the left passing lane after some honks and some high beam flashes, then pulled up on the right passenger side of the 63-year-old and fired at him through his passenger side of his truck, hitting the 63-year-old in his upper right arm. The shot came from what he described to state troopers as an older-style sedan, maroon, with possible New Jersey plates, maybe a passenger with the driver inside. The 63-year-old from Montclair, Montgomery County, then drove from the shooting scene in White Marsh Township at milepost 3.9 to the Fort Washington Toll Plaza interchange, where he got both medical help and the state police put his truck up on a flatbed to take it in for examination, and maybe other bullet holes from shots that maybe missed the driver but maybe hit and lodged into his truck. At the Belmont State Police Barracks, Steve Keeley, Fox 29 News. Back to you.
Thank you to Steve for that report. Again, that was on Route 309 in Montgomery County. Sounds like the shooting transpired in White Marsh Township. So if you have any information about that vehicle or the incident, police are urging you to get in touch with them and provide that to them. We're looking for trying to get a break in the case. In Delaware, a bus driver is out of a job after leaving a 5-year-old student alone on a bus for more than 6 hours with temperatures in the 20s. The little boy fell asleep on the way to school, and the driver didn't notice until the afternoon. Sabina Kriakos had this report from Newcastle County this morning.
There are a lot of safety protocols in place to prevent exactly this kind of thing from happening, but none of those protocols actually worked in this case. So let's go to video again because we want to show you Ibn Polk. He's 5 years old, and this was again on Tuesday morning when he was put on the bus by his mom. He was headed over to Linden Elementary School. It was sub-freezing temperatures. You remember Tuesday, very cold, about 20 degrees. So he fell asleep on the bus. And actually, cameras on the bus capture his schoolmates trying to tell the bus driver as they were getting off the bus that Ibn was still on. But the district says that for whatever reason, the bus driver just didn't listen to those kids and continued on to the school bus depot. Well, 6 hours later, when she was getting ready for her afternoon routes, that's when she discovered Ibn because he actually coughed as she was on her way to the next school. So, of course, he was then discovered. His parents were called. Believe it or not, they never knew he was missing because the school never alerted them to his absence. They didn't put out their standard absence phone call. So let's listen to Ibn actually talking to us and his family.
I was asleep. I was just like this. I think I was at school. When I was not, I was somewhere else. That's why I was crying.
What type of people did the bus company hire? You know, people ain't doing their job, and that's my son. You know, I love him to death. And why she didn't do her job?
And we are entrusted with those children from 8 to 3 o'clock, and we have to be certain that we have them, or if we don't, that we've told the parents that we don't.
When I picked him up, he was soaking wet. He urinated on himself and he had nothing to eat, and he said he was crying.
Could have been worse. 7 hours on a bus as a child, not prepared for that weather. It could have been much worse, but I'm glad that it didn't happen like that.
We failed this family and this child, and we will review all of the procedures to make certain, to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again.
But again, the school bus driver has been fired. Just want to note, Ibn actually had his school lunch on him, but he didn't eat it because he said the school rules are that you can't eat on the bus. Back to you.
Thank you for that report, Sabina. Cute little kid. Glad to hear everything's okay. Have an 8-year-old, so I saw Mom trying to keep him calm still when while the camera was on him. So I understand what's going on there. Glad he's okay and the situation is, he's safe. Let's get you. I believe we have a web feed now, so this should stay up. This is back to the news conference in Virginia at Reagan International Airport in the Washington, D.C. area. This is federal workers talking about the impact of the government shutdown. The two senators, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, both Democrats from Virginia, spoke earlier. It looks like they have someone else speaking now. Could be a member of the union for the air traffic controllers. Let's listen in.
Tim and I have worked with on a variety of topics. Sarah Nelson.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Nelson. I'm the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, and we are here today.
Everything that you guys have done, and we'll continue to land planes and clear planes to take off in the government shutdown.
Thank.
Briefly had the sound from the wrong feed there, but it should be in sync now.
The president of the Association of Flight Attendants, someone that Tim and I have worked with on a variety of topics, Sarah Nelson.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Nelson. I'm the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, and we are here today because we are concerned about our safety, our security, and our economic stability, our jobs. You know, for years, the right has vilified federal workers as nameless, faceless bureaucrats. But the truth is, they are air traffic controllers. They're food inspectors. They are transportation security officers and law enforcement. They are the people who live and work in our communities, and they are being hurt. These people have a tremendous sense of commitment to the safety of our country. I've been to the training facility for law enforcement and for our transportation security officers, and they commit to a mission to keep our transportation system running with free movement and the interstate commerce that our country is so dependent upon. And they are coming to work without paychecks, sleeping in their cars between shifts because they can't afford the gas to get to work, so they're staying there. Are we less safe today? We are less safe today. Aviation unions had an emergency meeting last night to review these issues. We understand that the critical networks of layers of safety and security are not in place because we have people furloughed who fill those roles. And the people on the front lines who understand what will happen when the planes stop are still coming to work. We shouldn't throw the term patriot around glibly. Many of these people are our veterans. Many of these people are fighting for our country right now. And we are not paying them. They are worried about the safety and security of their own families as they come to work every day to ensure the safety and security of all of us. Now, as flight attendants, we know what happens when there is a gap in security. I am a Boston-based flight attendant. I lost my dear friends on 9/11, and my profession changed forever. Not only are we aviation's first responders, we are the last line of defense. And we are going to work today understanding that the layers of security that need to be there, the layers of security that were put in place after 9/11 when the TSA was created, are not there. The critical analysis that happens because we federalized our workforce and we can integrate our security assessment with all of the agencies who do that work. That is in place for a reason. So the people on the front lines who are the transportation security officers are doing that without that backing right now. Without the integration of the intelligence of the FBI, who is also on furlough right now. Without the intelligence of the cybersecurity members of DHS who are on furlough right now. This is about our safety and security and our jobs and our entire country's economic stability. No one will get out of this unscathed if we do not stop this shutdown. Leader McConnell, you can fix this today. If you don't show the leadership to bring your caucus to a vote to open the government today, then we are calling on the conscientious members of your caucus to do it for you. There is no excuse to continue this. This is not a political game. Open the government today.
And I think what Sarah just said of all of the other agencies, how this is a network of safety. And while we have certain organizations here, the fact that the FBI, the fact that the Coast Guard, the fact that others are in this same circumstance. And we also have with us Paul Rinaldi, who's the national president of the air traffic controllers. I commend what all of the aviation working groups got together last night and just told the truth. And that truth is Americans who are flying today are less safe than what our standards have been because these folks are not at work. I'd now like to bring up the president of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialist, Mike Perone.
Thank you. I'm Mike Perone. I'm the National President for Professional Aviation Safety Specialists. I want to thank Senator Warner and Senator Kane for holding this event. You know, FAA workers are being harmed by this shutdown. Those that are working and those that are furloughed. And as others have said, a layer of safety is missing and continue to miss every day of this shutdown. So I'm here on behalf of PASS. We represent about 11,000 technicians, aviation safety inspectors, flight inspection pilots, aeronautical information specialists, support staff, and many others. We're the backbone that the air traffic controllers need and have to make sure that they do their job so that the pilots can do their job and fly planes from airport to airport, coast to coast. We're behind the scenes making sure, today's an example of making sure that radar out there that's behind you is working. Our folks here at DCA maintain and certify that. ILS equipment for planes to land safely. All of that equipment is done by our folks to maintain and certify. They are working today and have been working with no pay. They're professionals, as everybody else that works in the FAA are professionals and want to do the job and will continue to do the job. But the problem is, every day that goes by, and tomorrow's another payday that they're going to miss, their minds, instead of being on the technical abilities to maintain and certify equipment, is going to be on, do I pay the mortgage? Do I buy dog food? Do I take that visit to the hospital? Do I go to daycare? They're thinking of that. And that's a problem because if they misalign something, if they do something wrong, air traffic may or may not know it, and that could be a potential. That's why we're saying a layer of safety is missing, because their focus and everybody's focus should be on maintaining the safest, most complex air traffic control system in the world. So we represent others as well. The aviation safety inspectors, they're now being recalled back to work. The problem with that is there's a confusion in the FAA and with the law as to actually what the work they can do. So some of those inspectors that are there that should be overseeing the regulatory and safety side of the house for the FAA are sitting, not working, not being paid, but sitting to figure out what that next step is. Everybody needs to go back to work, do their job, and get paid. The faster we do this, and I appreciate the two senators here and others trying to work to reopen the government. Pay these folks, and let's fix this and the problems that we never go through this again. We thought after 2013 this would never happen. Well, here we are again. This shutdown is terrible. This morning, coming over here, I got a text from someone. Unfortunately, one of the folks that we represent committed suicide last night. Now, we don't know if they did it because of the shutdown or was it a contributing factor, but people are getting hurt and people are feeling the pressure and the strain. I don't want to have to go to a funeral. I don't want to have to send their family, I'm sorry to hear this. End this shutdown now. Get people back to work. Pay them. This is livelihoods for people. They want to work. They continue to work. The stress, the uncertainty, these folks that I represent and pass, the NACA folks, TSA, the flight attendants, we all met last night from a union perspective, all the national presidents, to say the message is clear. A layer of safety is missing. They may not be comfortable. Do they fly? Don't they fly? They have to make that decision as a pilot, as the flight attendants. Our controllers have to make a decision. Is the equipment working properly? Our technicians have to make sure, are they doing things right? Is it done right? Is it certified? We got to end this shutdown and get that stress off their back so they can go back to the job that they've been asked to do, paid to do. Like those of us, many in the military, we put our hands up, said, I will protect and serve. We did the same thing for the government. That's what we want to do today. Please end this shutdown. Contact your congressional folks. Let them know to vote to open the government. Thank you.
And finally, from Airway Systems Specialist, Leroy McCray. Mr. McCray.
Hello, my name's Leroy McCray. I'm a airway traffic system specialist here at DCA, a member of PASS, the Professional Aviation Safety Specialist. I've been working here for 12 years. We work, maintain, certify, and repair the equipment that the air traffic controllers use on a daily basis to keep our airways safe. We've been coming to work every day. We've been doing our job. We've been maintaining our professions. People are starting to become angry. The nerves are starting to become angry. People are becoming angry on a daily basis, becoming more and more difficult to maintain. We haven't reached critical mass yet, but people need to realize that not getting paid and coming to work, in my opinion, is un-American. Continuing to ask people to come to work and not get paid is un-American. We're professionals. We're doing our job. We're proud to do our jobs. But to continue to come to work and not get paid is un-American. Federal workers are American workers. Thank you.
Well, we'll be happy to, Tim and I and others, we're happy to take questions. Come on up, Tim. Before we take questions, though, I genuinely would ask all of you, our friends in the press, camera folks, reporters, how many of you would be still showing up 5.5 weeks in to your jobs if you weren't being paid? How many of you would be willing to work overtime day in and day out if you weren't being paid? That question, I think, needs to be answered by all of us. And frankly, I can't think many more kind of courageous, brave, and dedicated public servants than the folks we've got behind us who continue to do that. So with that, we'll start taking questions.
Senator, are you aware of any specific security threat that is exacerbated by the shutdown? And if so, what is it? And also, will it take something like a national tragedy like 9/11 to reopen the government? Well, what's going to take?
Two quick points. One is, I just think the stress on these folks is enormous. That level of stress is going to double next week when you've gone without a second pay period and as you approach the beginning of the month, where rents are due, mortgage payments are due, all kinds of other car payments are due. One of the things that Tim and I have been working on is trying to call on particularly some of the largest banks who the American public bailed out 10 years ago, that they need to step up now and try to make sure that these folks don't pay a penalty because nothing they've done has been their fault. I don't know, Paul or anybody of you all want to raise specifically.
Yeah, Paul, come on up here. So here's Paul. He's the president of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. And he can talk about the stress on the job for people who are mandated to retire at age 56 because their job is so stressful.
So honestly, I think everybody knows that air traffic control is a high-stressed occupation. These are highly skilled, highly trained professionals. Training has not happened in 34 days. Think about your athletes that train every day. Our highly skilled, highly trained professionals are coming to work, but training's not happening. We have built a system over the last 10 years of a layer of safety net. And over the course of the last 34 days, that net is deteriorating. And I keep telling people, I don't know when, but I could see the unraveling happening. I could see the controllers more concerned about, do I continue to live off my credit cards and put gas in the car, but I'm reaching my limit, my gas in the car to come to work, but I'm reaching my limit, I need to put food on the table at the same time. There are proud professionals that are trying to keep this system running, but they're actually, I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of reports, I can't come to work anymore. I'm seeing resignations, and at a 10,500 certified air traffic controllers, we are at a 30-year low of certified controllers through the system. 20% of them can retire. Now, how long do they go without a paycheck before they just fill out their retirement paperwork and then go wait tables or drive Uber or Lyft so that they could put food on the table, and when the government opens back up, they'll get their annuity in retirement and just get out of this system altogether. We cannot run the volume of traffic if they retire. We will have to slow down the system, which then slows down our economy, which has the trickle-down effect to everybody. It's unacceptable, and this has got to end.
Number one, it's not a secret that there are threats against our nation at all times. But what Paul just described is a known threat right now that we're telling you this is a threat to our safety and security, to our national safety and security.
Just real quick, you asked if there would need to be some kind of a disaster for government to reopen. This is a disaster. If a hurricane hit part of Virginia and 800,000 people's livelihoods were wiped out because their businesses were closed, the governor would in a minute ask for a national declaration of an emergency, and the president would grant it. If a foreign adversary attacked our country and closed down big swaths of the United States government and hurt this many people, we'd call it an act of war. So this is already a disaster.
But will it take an act of war due to the lack of that layer of security to prompt the government to act? Because I covered Congress in 9/11, and the day after 9/11, you guys passed a lot of legislation. And I'm wondering if that's what it's going to take to reopen the government.
There will be, you'll be able to tell how seriously folks take this. This afternoon in the United States Senate, we will have a chance to vote on legislation that passed the Senate 96-2 in December. The only thing that's changed since December is we've gone 33 days of workers in our economy being hurt. It's the exact same piece of legislation. Look who votes yes, look who votes no in terms of who views this as a national crisis.
So the air traffic controllers will do everything they possibly can to maintain a safe, orderly flow of the airplanes that are in the system. We will if our controllers can't come to work, if they retire, if they resign, if they're so fatigued and so stressed out, we will have to reduce the amount of airplanes we can put in the sky to make it safe. What I talk about is the layers of safety. In 2010, we started this safety culture to mitigate and pull risk out of the system. And we have robust reporting systems where we identify, all right, we have a known risk, we must mitigate it. We're not doing that right now. And those reports are robust, and they happen every day throughout the whole system. I'm starting to see, because I get the safety reports every day, I'm starting to see routine mistakes in clearances being made because controllers are distracted. They're distracted. We cannot have them distracted. The maximum they can work is 10-hour day, 6-day work week. They're all maxed out on that, and then they're figuring out, I have to go drive Lyft or Uber before work and after work. They are not mitigating their fatigue. They're coming to work stressed that they can't pay the bills, and at the same time fatigued because they're working around the clock to try to make ends meet. So you ask me, the chain of events that happen in any event, any situation, incident, or accident, it's never one situation. It is a chain of events. And right now, we have a chink in the armor, is what I'm saying. We are opening ourselves up to risk in the system, and this shutdown needs to end today. The flying public is safe. They can get on an airplane. They can know that the pilots are going to do a fantastic job. The flight attendants, TSA is going to do a fantastic job. Is it going to be efficient? The controllers are going to make sure that you get from point A to point B safely. We don't know if it's going to be on time. We don't know if you're going to make your connections, because most of our airlines run hub and spoke, where you have to run around airports to make connections. We cannot hold this schedule when we lose that many controllers, and we're about to lose a lot of controllers.
And just
yes. So I would follow that up with their statement. Why would you bring back 3,000 more safety professionals to do their work if the system is not less safe? Because you deem them non-essential, not important for the safety of the system on day one. But all of a sudden, on day 20, they're starting to see it. They're not admitting it. They're starting to see chink in the armor. Let's bring these safety professionals back so we could try to mitigate the risk we are putting into the system. You know, those two statements do not balance. Why bring back 3,000 more safety professionals if there's no risk in the system?
And this is and Tim may want to weigh in on this. This is an administration that tried to paper over all of the problems about this shutdown. I mean, the complete lack of thought that went into, well, we're going to shut down the parks, but we'll allow people to still come in and do enormous damage. It was only after the fact. This is a White House that can't plan from A to B. This is a White House that still has never shown up to show any listening to these employees or the hundreds of thousands of others. This is a White House that still, 33 days into this shutdown, has yet to have even a sit-down with any federal workers. And anyone, just plain common sense, if you don't think the stress level on these folks goes up dramatically when they don't receive another paycheck today and tomorrow, and they've got beginning of the month bills coming due, then you don't realize human nature. Let's. Oh, can we get one? Excuse me. Can we get? Well, here, and then we're going to have to head out. Tim, what? I want the aviation professionals to speak to that. But what I think is so missing in your question is Senator Kane and I were with a bunch of workers last week. They work in one group works in a very small agency, about 40 people, that goes and investigates chemical spills. Well, there was a fairly major chemical spill in Houston last week. Nobody's gone and investigated it. We've seen there's been a few both vehicular crashes and small plane crashes. The safety inspectors that are supposed to go out and be reviewing those are doing it at half capacity. There was somebody we were with yesterday that is in the process. Grocery stores who accept food stamps have to go through a process. He said when he got furloughed, there were a couple hundred grocery stores that were waiting in the queue. So this, and I want Senator Kane to weigh in on this, but air traffic safety may be the most visible, but the pain that is being inflicted on millions of Americans across this country is, again, disgraceful that we've not had a White House that's been willing to say, let's move to a solution. Let me be clear again. I will support additional border security. Open the government. We can have that negotiation off of the president's proposal.
Take the next question, and then we'll
all right,
respond to
please.
This actually, great question. And here's what we ought to commit to do. And actually, we've been telling the Republicans in the Senate and the White House, this is what we'll do. The Democratic bill today would reopen government just until the 8th of February. It's only 15 days. And what we've said to the White House is the president put a proposal on the table Saturday. It was introduced on Tuesday, less than 48 hours ago. Put that in the relevant committee next week. Have the administration come up and explain each element in the president's proposal and get questions. Treat it like a normal piece of legislation. Later in the week, the committee can mark it up with amendments. The Republicans have the majority. They have the chairmanship. They can control the timing of it. Have a committee hearing, consider the proposal, put it on the floor, and then the week before February 8th, we can take it up on the floor with debates and amendments. If it's a serious proposal by the president, then let's treat it seriously. If it's not a serious proposal, then up or down vote, jam us, nobody has a chance to read it, nobody can make any amendments. So what we've said to the Republicans is, we're willing to treat the president's proposal seriously. You ought to treat it seriously. Let a committee take it up next week. Let's get it on the floor. The elements of the plan, border security funding, Dreamers, folks who have TPS status, those are all elements where we can find a bipartisan deal. I was part of a group of 16 senators, Senator Warner too, that took a bipartisan deal to the White House on this last February, and President Trump blew up the deal. At least maybe now he's finally interested in talking, but let's take 2 weeks, and we can actually do this in the Senate before February 8th. So Mark's point is right. Look and see how everybody votes.
Take you live to a press event that's occurring in Camden, New Jersey. This is Camden being awarded a $1 million Bloomberg grant for review. This will help them transform illegal dumping sites into public art spaces throughout the city of Camden. Let's listen into the news conference here.
Finalists, of which 5 cities were selected, and we're so proud that Camden was selected as one of the finalists. I can't tell you how meaningful this is, but perhaps I can say it this way. When you're talking about working on a public policy initiative as important as illegal dumping and trying to interface that with public art to not only build a positive experience for the community, but to change the perception that people have about Camden is one of the most meaningful things we can do. And I will say this to you, Mishka and Vidra in our office worked so hard with the mayor's office, the county, and Rutgers University. The fact that we were recognized as one of the cities to advance this important policy initiative is so meaningful to us, and we're again so grateful that Bloomberg Philanthropies gave us this opportunity. Let me turn it over to Jeff, and then I'll turn it over to Mishka and Peter to say a few
Two
words.
points. First, Mayor Bloomberg visited South Jersey and this region several months ago, and I'm hoping that he was impressed with the advancements that we have made in Camden City. But if I could put this in context, the revitalization of the city is not only about creating jobs, which it is, of course. It's not only about improving the education or only about public safety. There is a quality of life in the communities that is an integral part of any revitalization. This project, along with the revitalization of 6 parks in the city of Camden, really changes the nature of a community. It improves the community. It takes in a dump site, something like the tire site that was littering part of Camden only a few months ago. It changes it into something beautiful that the community can enjoy.
Mishka?
What I would say is illegal dumping is something that is not exclusive to Camden. Illegal dumping happens all across this country, but the difference here is that when you see illegal dumping on an isolated road in the suburbs or in the rural area, it's seen as an isolated incident. And here in the city of Camden, it helps to perpetuate every negative stereotype that you've heard about the city, as well as its residents, which is why it's important to be able to tackle these, in particular for this project, along the transit corridors, along the Greenway Trail, along the areas where over 65,000 people travel every day, and look at these blighted areas that reinforce those stereotypes and their opinions about the residents here in the city. And this really is about creating a new view, getting people to think differently about the city of Camden, and providing opportunities for arts and culture that not only touch the residents, but the visitors and the communities that are impacted by these illegal dumping sites.
Thank you. Mitra?
I'm really excited to get the arts community in Camden involved. You've heard it said several times, this is an art challenge, not an art project. And art is activism, and people have things to say, and artists have a unique way of making a point sometimes. So we're really excited to get Camden's art community, the national art community, the regional art community involved in making a statement and saying something specific about one of the challenges that Camden is facing. So look forward to seeing some art that's not only beautifying our space, but speaking to some of the challenges of our city and helping to move us forward. 2
real quick things, and I will take questions. One is the city spends $4 million a year cleaning up illegal dumping sites. The fact that we're not going to solve all the challenges of illegal dumping in the city of Camden, but the fact that we are about to turn 6 or 7 of the most important locations where there's illegal dumping into an exhibition for public art is an effort to reduce the costs of curing illegal dumping issues. Equally important, just a word about Cooper's Ferry. You may wonder why Cooper's Ferry is in the middle of this project and many others. Cooper's Ferry is a community development and economic development nonprofit that's been in the city of Camden for 34 years. We are at the front and center of every public policy initiative that happens in the city, and we feel like we are meaningful partners and meaningful contributors to all the good that is happening in the city, and we're so honored that the city and Rutgers have worked with us to make sure we get this grant. So with that, we'll take questions.
Simple question.
Please.
What are you doing? Well, what's happening?
So why don't we do this? So
these
great.
These are sites that are dump sites in general. But
So let's do this. If it's okay with, is that okay if we come around for a second and explain this? Does that work for you, or no?
Could you? Is there any way that one you can hold that up?
Yeah, let's do that. So
hold it up back here.
Let's do this. So what we have here are what you see in red and what you see in green are the Riverline and Patco sites, right?
And the Camden Greenway Trail.
And the Camden Greenway Trail. So the sites that we've identified are the sites where illegal.
Hang on 1 second.
Sorry.
I need to put your mics on the right side of this, or
See,
There we go.
This is what happens when you do it in a conference room.
You want me to?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Take 2.
Take 2.
All right,
Here we go.
Take two. So a new view takes all of the transit corridors and transit opportunities that are in the city of Camden, from the Patco high-speed line to the Camden Greenway Trail, to the River Line light rail line, and thinks about the opportunities for the most scenic illegal dumping sites along those routes in order to transform those sites with art and cultural programming. So specific sites, we'll be choosing about 8 sites along these routes that are now currently plagued with illegal dumping and being able to transform them with arts and culture programming. So it could be anything from a large sculptural piece to a light projection installation, but utilizing nationally renowned as well as local artists in order to be able to work with the communities together to create these artworks and put them on each site. And then program those sites to really help bring the community together around the issue of illegal dumping.
So how do you keep them, you put a piece of sculpture out, how do you stop that piece of sculpture from being surrounded by trash?
Great question. The goal, the reason why we're going to engage the community and the residents, and we work with the Camden County Police Department, is to make sure that once the art installation is done, that it is a source of pride not only for the community, but it's a responsibility that we will take as a community along with the police department to make sure that it is maintained and it is there for the enjoyment not only for the resident but for visitors as well.
So for example, will there be things like security cameras that are monitored and so forth? Just so, in other words, what stops this from reverting to a dump site once the sculpture, the mural, or whatever the art piece is there?
Sure, 2 things. One is the active policing of those sites through things like security cameras and partnerships with the police department. But also, by activating those sites alone, you create those eyes on the street. You create that opportunity where people no longer feel that this is a site that can be illegal dumped on. Our illegal dumping challenge is not just one of the residents putting out illegal dumping trash, but construction debris from contractors from outside the city of Camden, from other people that are coming into the city and dumping their trash on already existing piles of trash. So once we get rid of that trash, it really does help to send a message that Camden is not a place to be dumped on. And by then replacing that trash with beautiful works of art, you really help to change that narrative about what the city of Camden is and stands for.
We've had great success with Eye in the Skies when you have police visuals on a site, that it does serve as a deterrent to any type of dumping. But we've also had great success throughout Camden in community gardens, where the community has taken hold of a lot and have created gardening sites. Those sites have never been trashed. So that is a good example of what we hope to accomplish here.
And then the enforcement piece is critical as well. It's not just about monitoring, it's about enforcing the site to make sure that if there is illegal dumping that happens or if there's something else that happens, that there's enforcement to make sure it doesn't happen.
I'm gathering from what Jeff, you just said, when there's a reason to protect something, if you will, as opposed to it being a generic plot of ground, when there's a reason to protect it, people tend to be protective of it.
When they feel that they have an ownership interest in that site, then they do protect it. The community comes together to protect it, and we're hoping that's accomplished here.
And we've had a lot of experience with this, as the freeholder mentioned. When you take a space and turn it into a place, people treat it like that.
And by the way, and the best example of that is if you look at some of the parks that the freeholder was just talking about. Not all the parks that Cooper's Ferry and the city and the county have worked on are on the waterfront. They are in the neighborhoods. Once you take a park that has been historically challenged, and you convert it into a beautiful space for the families that they can enjoy, then there's a sense of pride and there's a sense of protection for that asset. And I think that is precisely what we are going for when we try to beautify these spots in the city.
Are the police already patrolling this area now? And are they going to spend more time there? Is it do they reroute their surveillance? So obviously this stuff was dumped there in the last weeks, months, years, what have you. Did they just not see it? You understand what I'm saying?
Sure. It's a complex effort. Some of these are somewhat isolated sites, and so the police can't be everywhere all the time, even if they're on the patrol. So one is a partnership with the police department on working to enforce those areas, but also working in partnership with our community. We have a program called Camden Reports, which is an online reporting tool where we're now encouraging our residents to report instances of illegal dumping in order to really try to both prosecute and enforce so that we can stop this illegal dumping from happening in our city.
So, I mean, what it comes down to us is raise awareness, monitor, enforce, and enjoy the place that was historically been spoiled by people from the outside mostly. We believe it's an asset for the residents, and the residents have asked for this, and the residents are going to be part of the effort to make sure that what we do here is something they can enjoy.
I'm guessing it's no accident that this is along the mass transit
That's
lines.
correct.
One of the things in Philadelphia is that the Amtrak lines and SEPTA lines take you through some pretty horrific looking dumping areas. This sets the mood for those coming through Camden to shake their head and say, typical Camden.
Yeah, perception sometimes is reality. And when you have 40,000 people a day going on PATCO in and out of Philadelphia, their perception of the city, maybe in their head as a whole, starts at these sites. As it used to start at Adam Wilson Boulevard before it was cleaned up. When you change the visual of a city for the people living outside the city, they are more compelled to come into the city. They are now seeing no longer trash tires. They're seeing a beautiful piece of art. That is now their perception of the city, and the city it's part of the rebirth of the city and compelling people to come visit, work, and live here.
The best example we can think of is, I think this is the Reliable Tire site. For the longest time, it was a burnt out tire factory. And when you're on the Patco speed line, 40,000 people a day saw a burnt out building with tires and trash strewn all over the place. That site is clean today, and what we're proposing is that site will become a center point, a central focal point of this art.
I'm assuming the artwork will also include some sort of seating, benches, something for people to come and enjoy it, as opposed to just something you kind of walk past and look at, something that would actually attract people to stay for at least a few minutes and enjoy it. Is that the idea?
So the idea is really on some of these sites to really create active spaces, so places where people can congregate, enjoy those spaces together. We've been working through a program called Connect the Lots every summer on activating underutilized vacant spaces here in the city of Camden, engaging thousands of residents and visitors, and we hope to employ those for these sites as well.
Time frame for when you hope to do all this?
Thursday.
Well, we'll actually be starting the cleanup of these sites for this spring with some interim programming happening on those sites, happening all throughout the summer. But the art installations themselves you won't really see until 2020. We'll be engaging through a request for proposals from artists all throughout this winter, trying to engage national and local artists into the fray and work with the communities over the next year to come up with those solutions for those and those visions for the art.
So you can see things like sculptures, murals, what other kinds of things might we see?
Yeah, so we are asking the question. I think that's part of our process, is to make sure that we get the word out to as many interested artists, and especially artists who have a passion for, political activism, people who want to talk about issues, people who want to address the situation of town, and if people have ideas for light installations, for murals, for sculpture, for seating areas, we'll be really excited to take all of those.
We just don't want to be prescriptive sitting here today.
No.
We have ideas, but we want to listen to the community.
And reflecting the great history of the city, too, is something we want to portray.
This art that's projected, okay, is it permanent? Like, will you guys rotate every 2, 3, or is that still up for discussion?
Look, $1 million is a lot of money, but $1 million is not a lot of money. Not 7 sites for art. So our expectation is that we want this to be a permanent exhibit as we can afford it. But ultimately, what we don't want is these sites to revert back to what they were before. So we will do whatever it takes to make sure they are a permanent presence in the community. Thank you. Any other questions?
If you can hold that up for one more minute, maybe if you make it
Get in there.
Yeah, sorry, we have.
All right, you've been watching a news conference in Camden, New Jersey, where the city has been awarded a $1 million Bloomberg grant for a new view. This is, as they mentioned, the grant will help transform illegal dumping sites into public art spaces throughout the city. Camden was one of 4 cities chosen from a pool of more than 200 for the Bloomberg Philanthropies Public Art Challenge. So while that was going on, we had House Speaker Nancy Pelosi give her news conference, and authorities in Florida are providing an update on the deadly SunTrust bank shooting that occurred. So we'll get you out to those. I have those taped so I can bring them to you in a little bit. In the meantime, let's get you to a few more local stories that we have from Good Day this morning, and from we'll bring you some updates on any of them that we have. This first one is the Basket-Brawl we showed you yesterday. There have been charges filed now. What's next for the 6 people facing charges, including a 13-year-old? Local attorney Shaka Johnson joined Good Day this morning to discuss the case. Here's their conversation about that.
Police in Salem County, they announced charges against 6 people, including a 13-year-old, after a basketball game in Pennsville ended in a fist fight. Of course, we were talking about this story yesterday during the show.
Yeah, because of the video. 3 women were charged with both simple assault and disorderly conduct, and then 3 others, including a teenager, were charged with disorderly conduct. I think there was a teenage boy. The chaos started after a woman got up. She's up there on the top row of the bleachers. Got up from her seat, turned around and confronted some other people in the stands there. Now, apparently, they're parents of opposing teams' players. So, Shaka Johnson has come in, our attorney at law. Shaka, I don't know, I guess back when I was alive, back in my day, you kind of let this go. You know, you're all right. But they're being charged.
Yes.
By the police.
Yes. You know, we've seen in recent history where laws are even being enacted to govern the behavior of parents at these games. We're finding far too often here lately, parents are getting involved in fights with referees, coaches, with one another, and they're endangering the welfare of the children that are actually participating in the sports. This was a junior high school, middle school basketball game. Everyone on the court is a minor. You see one of the students, right there, we're number 2, sort of right into the fray, right into the heart of the melee. And then there are other minors, as you can see, just sort of taking part. It is a harrowing experience. There could be lots of injuries that result from an scholastic basketball game.
Right, they're supposed to be setting an example for the kids.
Well, you know, I think that is a dashed theory at this point. Parents stand on the sidelines, and we're used to jaw-jacking and jeering and sort of making commentary to the other side. But there has to be a line of demarcation where you govern your behavior, and the police have to get law and order.
So they can charge, even though the police weren't there, by looking at the tape?
The video was the best witness.
Okay.
So
the evidence.
You don't need someone to say, hey, listen, someone assaulted me, I'd like to press charges.
I got it right here.
As a matter of fact, you could not say that because there are some people who were assaulted and they did some assaulting themselves. The police watched the video, slowed it down, and was able to tell who were the antagonists in the situation.
And what about the 13-year-old, though? Do you feel, I mean, the fact that this is going to affect him for the rest of his life?
I would like to think that because he's a juvenile, there would be something worked out with him and sort of a diversionary program.
He wasn't a
maybe
player.
some anger management. He was player number 2, right there. Right.
Oh, they're charged at number 2?
There you go, right into the heart of the fray. Whoa. And so it's hard to say that he was swept up or the fight swept onto the court.
What if it was his mother, though?
And that's my point. And that's my point. And so I think that there'll be some sort of diversionary program for that young man, maybe some anger management, and there's a way to deal with him as a juvenile. The adults, though, the law, Salem County has to get this in check. They have to.
Okay. Well, what about, we want to get to a story that was big for us this morning about a 5-year-old boy who was left on a school bus for about 6 hours. The school didn't catch it. The bus driver didn't catch it.
Yes.
And so the bus driver has been fired. Yeah. But, I mean, for the parents, they have to be pretty upset with the school as well because they never called to say that he never showed up to school.
Absolutely. So there were plenty of things that were missed here.
Oh, yeah.
The school is supposed to notify when there's an absentee, right? They're supposed to
show
notify.
up.
Didn't call. A whole bunch of fails here, a whole bunch of fails from safeguards that are put in place for just this sort of situation.
All right, we'll see what happens. I guess it's up to the parents if they're going to take more action.
More action. And quite frankly, by all accounts on the news reports, the young man seems to be okay. I know he didn't eat. He was in freezing cold, so he was made to be significantly uncomfortable. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like he was injured in a way that would necessarily warrant a lawsuit.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Shaka, thank you.
Thank you, Shaka.
Again, that was Shaka Johnson talking about the Basket-Brawl, and also then touching on at the end there another story we brought you this morning, Sabina Koreakos reporting about the child who was left on a school bus yesterday and the driver who's been fired since. I want to get you to a few other updates. We covered this pretty widely yesterday afternoon on our station. This was first came in as a active shooter in Salem County, at the county offices. Later updates were that it was not, it was a gunman who was firing. Well, I'll read you the update. This was a fugitive who opened fire, leading to a standoff, and now police believe they've caught the gunman. U.S. Marshals were trying to arrest 26-year-old Eric Smith on a warrant for failing to appear in court yesterday, but he wasn't going without a fight. He started shooting, and at least one of the task force members returned fire, causing a standoff that lasted more than 3 hours. Nearby schools were put on lockdown. As I mentioned, the Salem County offices were also locked down for some time. Here's some of the reaction we had from folks around that area.
As a precautionary measure, our schools are in lockdown.
Like, is this for real? Like, this is stuff you see on TV. Like, is you serious? Big guns, state troopers, black trucks. It's scary.
The situation was ended after a negotiator was able to convince the suspect to turn himself in. No one was hurt, thankfully. County workers were sheltering in place and then let out in many cases. The county offices wound up closing for the rest of the day, or at least the courthouse did. So, successfully peaceful resolution there in Salem County. Conjoined twins are living their lives separately, all thanks to a team of doctors at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. 2-year-olds Aaron and Abby were born conjoined at the head. The condition is rare. It only happens about 6 times in 10 million births. In June of 2017, the two underwent an 11-hour surgery. After months of recovery, they went home, and now, this happy update, their parents say they're doing exceptionally well. As you can see, this video was provided by Children's Hospital. Glad to see they are doing well. Big names in sports and entertainment are coming together to take on criminal justice reform. Rappers Meek Mill and Jay-Z and the owners of the Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, and the New England Patriots came together yesterday in New York City to launch the organization. The Reform Alliance takes aim at what they call a cycle of probation and parole violations, leading people back to prison. Sixers co-owner Michael Rubin said the group is dedicating $50 million to the effort. Meek Mill, the locally born musician, says this is important and he understands firsthand.
I'm like one of the lucky ones, even after all I went through, and you have people that don't have a voice, and I'm here to speak for the people who don't have a voice. I come from that side of the wall. I didn't ask to be the face of reform. I don't want to be the face of anything. I just want to bridge gaps and try to bring people together and make the world a better place, and especially for my culture and the environment I grew up where the system has a system that's basically targeted for people that look like me. Yeah, I needed permission to be here today. Legally, if I didn't get permission to come here today, and I just came here today, I get off probation in 2023, so the rest of that time, if I came to New York without permission, I could have got the rest of that time given to me as prison time.
Right? We don't want people that's in charge of the police areas to be in danger either. We want to be very clear. You know, if someone commits a crime, they should go to jail. But these things are just disproportionate, and the whole world knows it.
Apologies, you probably just heard me coughing in the background there on my open mic. Government statistics show about 2.2 million people in the U.S. are incarcerated, and about 4.5 million are on probation or parole. The family of murdered Temple student Jenna Burleigh has a new mission after her death. This morning we were talking with them about how they're keeping her memory alive by continuing her passion project. This is a clip from Good Day Philadelphia this morning. And here is the family's conversation with our anchors Mike Jarek and Alex Holly.
Mike and Alex, back over to you.
Thank you, Bob. We've been following this case since the summer of 2017. The story of Jenna Burleigh, a Temple University student who went out for the evening and never came home. And we've gotten to know her parents over the last few weeks at the trial of her killer.
Jenna's parents are here, Ed and Jacqueline. Should I call you Jacqueline?
You can call me Jackie.
Jackie, okay. And Shaylin is one of her good friends, Jenna's friends. Went to high school together, right?
Yeah, I also date her brother.
Exactly,
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in. I know it's been a tough year and a half.
Absolutely.
For people that, and I never met Jenna, you know, how would you describe her?
She was very loving, caring, charismatic. She was a little bit sassy.
I like that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
A little bit sassy. And she was really, what's the word? Unapologetically herself.
Yeah. Now, what do you mean by that? A good friend, Shailene?
It just really meant that she wasn't afraid to be herself. Yeah, so, and she wasn't afraid to be herself, and she wasn't like, I don't know how to describe it.
She accepted everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loving.
She always
was
supported
very
the
loving.
underdog. She really supported the underdog
Yeah.
in every area of life.
Where'd she get that? Is that from Dad?
Is that from Mom? I think it's a little bit of both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind of the
I
way it
really
works.
do. Yeah, and when Jenna started giving to the homeless, I remember being her age, working in Center City, and always when I went out to dinner, I would give them my leftover food. And I told her that after she created this.
Well, what do you think made her want to do more for the homeless? What sparked that interest?
I know she told me concerning the blessing bags, she had saw a news report about the blessing bags being distributed in Chicago, and that gave her the idea. So she did it on her own, very grassroots. She started collecting the bags, collecting supplies. She asked various schools to get involved, and when she first started, she did it on her own. Jackie and I went with her twice. We wish we would have went with her more.
Yeah.
But now it's just the support that we're receiving from,
I bet.
from her friends and family and Temple and the community at large.
When did she, at what age did she start that?
She was 19, and she was going through a really rough time.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what to do in her life. And she was home, and just really trying to guide herself. And she said, "Mom, I think this is something I want to do."
And what did you say?
And I said, "We're here for you. Go for it."
Yeah.
I just found a post on my Facebook page from 3 years ago where I requested help for Jenna. And a lot of people then also donated some items, and although now it has become huge. So we did bring a bag.
This is an example. It's a big bag.
Yeah.
What all's in there?
So we have food items, we have personal items. You can open it up.
Let's see.
So there's a lot of pockets.
There are a lot of pockets, yeah. Right now we're receiving bags that are being donated.
Wonderful.
And I'll tell you, the donated...
Oh, I think you just closed it. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right, here we go.
So there we go.
And some of it's seasonal. In the wintertime, we have scarves and hats. And
So that's the personal, those are personal items like
Wonderful.
deodorant and shampoo and a toothbrush, toothpaste.
Oh my gosh, a lot of clothes.
Winter items and blankets.
Little journal.
A journal.
That's nice.
And pens.
How many bags do you think she's been able to give since she started?
So she herself gave out about 100 bags at the time. Since then, we've given out probably 500 bags.
Wow.
500 to 700. We're not just in Philadelphia. We have a family in Springfield, Massachusetts. They're delivering bags up there. They've been delivered in Boston, Denver, Colorado, where my sister lives. Even Montreal, Canada.
Well, let's spread it around the country.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what we'd like to do.
Yeah, what a legacy for her, right?
I believe that. Yeah, I believe.
So what's the box for? If I want to donate something, I put it into the box?
Yep, you can just put it into the box.
Where do I find these boxes?
The boxes are in the Harleysville area, also at Temple. There are a couple on the outskirts of Harleysville that have been put out.
Are they like by grocery stores or schools or?
So schools, grocery stores, gas stations, the Y in Harleysville, the police station in Harleysville. We've also given some bags out to the emergency rooms because a lot of times they will get some homeless people who come to get cared for, but then they leave.
Is there a website that we could go to find a location?
Yes, the website is www.jennasblessingbags.org.
Now, the website is under development, so currently to take donations, a check needs to be written, but we are in the process of being able to accept credit cards when the website is finalized. Within about 2 weeks, it will be finalized.
Shailene, you mentioned that you date Jenna's brother.
Yeah.
How many siblings?
Yes, we have 4 children altogether. Janelle is our oldest, and she's the executive director of the foundation.
That's great.
Our Jenna, of course, was our second. Jeb, Joseph Edward Burleigh IV, he's our oldest son. And then
that's
we have,
who I date.
That's who you date?
Right.
Okay.
And Jacob. And of course, all of our children are on the board, but it's not a family foundation, it's a community foundation. So we have family, friends, many of Jenna's friends, community leaders, and
how are your siblings doing? I mean, how do you wrap your head around what happened to Jenna?
It's very rough for them. Jacob, our youngest, of course, lived at home with her, and he misses her very, very much, of course. And Jenna was his go-to person.
And he's now her dog keeper because Jenna had a dog.
Right.
So the dog and Jenna. Here's a picture, I think, of Jenna and Jacob. And there's Jenna and Jacob. Yeah.
They're
Seemed
really
like they were
close.
They were very close, yeah. All 4 of our children were very close. Janelle moved out to Florida. Unfortunately, Jenna never got to get to her apartment in Florida, but we had planned on doing that.
Any help you need from us, let us know.
Thank you.
Right?
Please keep us updated.
Absolutely.
This is wonderful.
Good to see you all.
There's actually
Thank
a
you.
collection right now at Temple also.
Oh, good.
Yeah, from
Good.
11 to 3 today in the Student Center.
You're amazingly strong people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Keep
We
her
really
legacy
appreciate it.
strong.
Thank you
We
for
will.
having us.
Of course.
We never want Jenna to be, we want her to live on forever.
Well, this is the way she is.
Absolutely.
We'll take a break.
That was the interview from Good Day This Morning with the Burleigh family. Again, they mentioned it today from 11 till 3. There's a drive at Temple University. We'll be posting the interview as well as a story with links to the website they mentioned on our website as soon as possible. Want to get you to a couple other stories that we have come in. First, I want to do an update on the possible road rage shooting, the suspected road rage shooting on Route 309 overnight. We just got a press release from State Police a short time ago. So I'll show a little video of this while I tell you about it. Troopers responded to the Fort Washington interchange for a reported shooting, State Police say. After arriving on scene, it was discovered the victim was traveling home from work through the area mentioned above. That's Route 309 at mile marker 5.6. They're calling it Upper Dublin Township. We've gone back and forth between Upper Dublin and White Marsh. The victim related he changed lanes from the left to the right lane so he could exit onto the turnpike. After doing so, a maroon sedan passed his vehicle on the right shoulder. While the vehicle was passing him, he heard a gunshot. After he heard the gunshot, his passenger side window shattered and he felt a burning sensation on his upper right arm. The maroon vehicle continued north on Route 309 at a high rate of speed. The victim made his way to the Fort Washington interchange and waited for police. The bullet caused a minor graze wound to the victim's upper right arm. The suspect vehicle was described as an older model maroon sedan displaying a New Jersey registration plate. A Be on the Lookout, a BOLO, was sent out to surrounding agencies and Pennsylvania State Police stations. The State Police Philadelphia Criminal Investigation Unit and Forensic Service Unit responded, and they are heading an investigation which is currently active. Our Kelly Rule is on this story today. She is reporting that there is a possible other vehicle that is a driver who says that may have also been struck by a bullet. So we are trying to track that down. Kelly will have a live report on the Fox 29 News at 5 and 6 tonight, and of course we'll bring you the latest developments at 10 and 11 as well. Our website story will be updated and posted to Facebook as well, I'm sure. Again, this is the possible road rage shooting that occurred overnight on Route 309 in Montgomery County. And that was the State Police report, information release just issued within the last hour or so. All right, now that we've done that, it looked like there was a possible protester at an event that we had live into the station a couple moments ago. This was Secretary of State Mike Pompeo giving remarks at a permanent council meeting at the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. Recorded a little bit after what transpired here, but I believe this is folks taking out a protester. She had a sign related to the Venezuela situation, where the United States has chosen to back a leader there who is other than the elected president. Multiple countries have. There are other countries who are continuing to back Mr. Maduro, the country's leader. Protest that was occurring there, so I'm sure there'll be more information available on that later today. In other news, we promised you we'd bring you a little bit of Nancy Pelosi's weekly news conference. I'm sure she was talking about the shutdown. Let's listen into the beginning of her remarks here from a short time ago.
Cable, because I know it was a source of many questions. Should we rent the equipment for the State of the Union? Should we have our families come in? It is so unimportant in the lives of the American people in terms of especially those who are victims of the shutdown, hostages to the president's applause line in a campaign speech. Thank goodness we put that matter to rest and that we can get on to the subject at hand. Open up government so that we can negotiate how best to protect our borders. Democrats have always been strong about honoring our oath of office to protect and defend the American people. Protecting our borders, securing our borders is an important part of that. Today, the Senate has an opportunity to pass legislation that is very simple. It's about billions of dollars in disaster assistance and also just keeping government open until February 8th so that we can have a discussion while people are being paid. Tomorrow marks the second paycheck that our federal workers will miss. We've asked the Republicans to take yes for an answer over and over again. And the legislation that we passed yesterday, this week, we have a little more than $500 million for the ports of entry. We have been told by authorities that 90% of the drugs come through the port of entry. We also know that those seeking amnesty are encouraged to come through the ports of entry, and most of them do. And that is a place where we can secure our borders for the purpose of, again, not security, but also immigration, trade, travel, tourism, and the rest. And so in that legislation, we have over $500 million to build the infrastructure to secure, to enhance and perhaps even increase the number of ports of entry. That is not in the Homeland Security bill because it falls under the Treasury Department independent agencies bill that we passed on the floor this week. We have over $500 million for additional immigration judges. This is to address the backlog of processing immigration cases. And then, those seeking asylum. An asylum is a humanitarian effort for all of us. The evangelicals have testified in our rump hearings before we had the majority to have a real hearing. They've testified that the U.S. refugee resettlement program, how we deal with asylum seekers, is the crown jewel of American humanitarianism. And again, that is being undermined. And these ports of entry, increasing them, will be helpful. But asylum seekers can cross wherever they can. That is under international law. Okay, third, then assistance to Central America country. These three things really actually were in the president's proposal the other day. So this is not different. We have been advocating this for a while. The president adopted some of these things in his statement the other day, and yet the Republicans refuse to support a Homeland Security bill that includes that. And it's not when I say a Homeland Security bill, it isn't the actual Homeland Security, it's a bill to open government. is for the 6 other bills to open government which contain some port of entry language. Today, the Senate will vote on a bipartisan bill to open government. It contains the same funding proposal they've already supported, and yet now they won't. So there's no excuse for Senate Republicans not to pass this legislation. We've asked them over and over again to take yes for an answer. So we're very firm in our support on how we secure our borders. Let's have that discussion after we open up government, and then let us get to work. You've heard the letters from the former secretaries of the Department of Homeland Security saying this is harmful, open up government. You've heard from the FBI Agents Association that because of the shutdown, they have no funds to pay confidential sources or to pay for investigation and prosecution of cases, including child exploitation, cyber warfare, or MS-13 terrorism-related cases. You've heard from the air traffic control.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi talking about the government shutdown. We had an abrupt cut out there because I shifted to record something else I'd mentioned earlier. In Sebring, Florida, authorities were holding a news conference related to a bank shooting that occurred. Yesterday, I believe 5 people were killed in this shooting. Let's listen into the news conference that happened. Again, this was earlier. We'll take the police statement off the top here and get you an update on that shooting incident.
This morning, my name is Paul Blackman. I'm the Highlands County Sheriff. I'm going to make some brief introductions and then we'll get on with our press conference. Standing immediately to my right is Police Chief Carl Hoagland from Sebring Police Department. Next to him, to his right, is the Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody. Next to Ms. Moody is the State Attorney for the 10th Judicial Circuit, Brian Haas. We have Mayor John Shoup standing in the back from the City of Sebring. FDLE Special Agent in Charge, Shane Pollard, here with us this morning. And we have Mark Bayshore, the Highlands County Public Safety Director, and Austin Maddox, a captain with the Sebring Fire Department. And lastly, we have Commissioner and County Commission Chairman Jim Brooks with us here. Please understand that it is our goal to be as transparent as possible regarding this incident with the media and concerned citizens. However, some of your questions will not be answered as this investigation is still in its most infant stages. So to protect the integrity of the investigation, we ask for your cooperation and patience. And note we will open the floor to questions at the end of the press conference. We would like to recognize the representatives from SunTrust Bank as they wanted to be here for the press conference this morning. However, they wanted to spend additional time with the family members of those who were tragically taken during this incident. As the sheriff, I would like to take this opportunity to thank members of the Highlands County Sheriff's Office, particularly our dispatchers, our SWAT team, our crisis negotiation team, the Highlands County Fire and EMS, Sebring Police Department, Sebring Fire, FDLE, FBI, all for working in concert and working together to put their lives on line for the protection of the citizens that we serve. In closing, and most importantly, we will continue to pray for the families who lost loved ones during this tragic event, as well as our community that we continue to serve. I'll introduce you now to Chief Hoagland from Sebring Police Department. Can you hear me? Sure.
Yesterday, our community suffered a tremendous loss at the hands of a heinous criminal. Zephan Allen Zaver knowingly and intentionally took the lives of 5 of our fellow community members. Our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, and our co-workers. Perhaps most unfortunate is that now we refer to them as victims of a senseless crime. While in contact with the victims' families, several have requested that we not release their information in accordance with Marsy's Law. I'm going to honor their requests. We've had additional requests that the victims be identified from other families. And I'm going to honor those requests as well, to honor their loved ones' memories, to honor our citizens, and to honor the people who call Sebring home. Miss Cynthia Watson was one of the people in the bank who senselessly lost her life yesterday as a result of the actions of a criminal. Miss Marisol Lopez was another victim of a crime here in Sebring. The incident began yesterday at approximately 12:30 when 21-year-old Zephan Zaver entered the SunTrust Bank with a gun. He immediately contacted bank employees and a bank customer and overtook the bank by force. He then shot everyone in the bank. After shooting them, he called 911. This occurred at approximately 12:36. He told dispatchers that he had killed 5 people in the bank. The wherewithal and the thoughts and the acts of our dispatchers were to maintain telephone contact with him until responding officers could arrive. Units from the Highlands County Sheriff's Office responded and arrived at approximately 12:40, with officers of the Sebring Police Department arriving 2 minutes thereafter. These units maintained tactical observation and control of the scene until supporting and additional units could arrive. Crisis negotiators also arrived on scene and established contact with Mr. Zaver. At 12:44, a SWAT call out was done in hopes that we could assume tactical responsibility of the scene. During crisis negotiations with Mr. Zaver, it appeared he was not going to allow officers of my agency and the Sheriff's Office access to the victims in the bank. At that action, I requested the Sheriff's Office SWAT team make a tactical entry into the bank. This was accomplished at 1:54 p.m. Upon entering and securing the scene, these tactical units took Zephan Zaver into custody at approximately 2:28 p.m. and they immediately began coordinating victim assessments. Unfortunately, all victims had succumbed to their injuries inside the bank. As the sheriff mentioned, this is an ongoing criminal investigation, and it is an active crime scene as we speak. Zephan Zaver has formally been charged with 5 counts of murder in the first degree. I cannot state how much I appreciate the assistance of our local partners, including the Sheriff's Office, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FBI, the Attorney General's Office, and the coordination and collaboration of SunTrust personnel, staff, and leadership. SunTrust has explained and wants you to know that their leadership is here. They are on site in Sebring. They are meeting with employees of the bank, they're providing support to families of the victims, and they are cooperating fully in our investigation. We now begin the healing process. We attempt to make sense of a senseless act. We attempt to mourn the loss of our peers, our neighbors, our mothers and daughters. It's a time for us to come together. It's a time for us to heal. And it's an opportunity for us to look back, reflect, and build strength based upon a senseless act. Thank you. I'll turn the floor over to Ms. General Moody.
It is unfortunate.
That was, again, an update earlier on the deadly bank shooting that occurred in Sebring, Florida yesterday. 5 people lost their lives. You heard police identify some of the victims there. They have identified the suspect as Zephan Zaver. And after negotiations fell through with him, SWAT officers stormed the bank, arresting him. You heard them say that he's been charged with 5 counts of murder in that case. Let's take you to, I think this will be the last thing we have for you. This will be look at our weather. Again, it's a soggy day out there. We've had lines of heavy rain coming through the area, one just before we came on here at 10 a.m. And it looks like some more yellow headed into the city at this time. Live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. And a little closer look at the ground here from outside our studios. It's quite a difference from just a few days ago. I think when I woke up Monday morning to head into work, it was 9 degrees outside. But if you've been outside this morning, you know it feels quite different. 58 right now at the moment. The dew point is 55. But it is quite windy. Wind out of the south at 20 miles per hour. You see somebody walking by there with an umbrella. Not an easy feat today. It's mine wanted to take off on me a couple times. Looks like it may have died down a little at the moment right there on Independence Mall. Here's a look at your current temperatures around the area. Looks like we might even have ticked up to 59 here. 61 in Wilmington, 63 in Dover, 50s, mid to upper 50s along the coast. Even Mount Pocono, which was at, I believe it was negative 30 wind chill or something like that on Monday morning, is now at 48 degrees. But the blue and pink are not too far behind. This will not be a long-term warm-up. As you can see from the current temperatures across the Northeast. They got 30s in Rochester, New York, 29 in Cleveland, 27 on the other side of the state. So temperature difference of, what, 34 degrees between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh right now? 81 down in Miami right now, 68 in Tampa, but 40s along the Gulf Coast and out west. And there is some more of that very cold air over the central part of the state. It's 2 in Billings, 3 in Rapid City, and 3 in Minneapolis. So quite a difference. You can go a 79-degree range right now just from just across the country. As we mentioned, the wind chill, there isn't much of it right now. It is quite windy, but it's not making it feel much different because here I'll show you what the wind speeds are. 22 in Philadelphia, 28 down in Wildwood, 14 in Mount Pocono, and we've got some heavy gusts to 31 in Philly, 37 in Wildwood, 36 in Toms River. There are some, the National Weather Service is calling attention to some of the winds that we are seeing. Let me get you a look at those. Widespread heavy rain is still falling across the area. More is expected in the next several hours, and that flood watch remains in effect for some areas. Gusty winds will also accompany the rain, with some areas also under a wind advisory. That was from the National Weather Service a little while ago on Twitter. So a good wrap up of the conditions there. And as we mentioned, the temperature change is drastic. I think when we came to you yesterday, it was 15 degrees warmer in Philadelphia than it was the day prior. Now we're 21 degrees warmer than that. So a 36-point swing in 2 days for the lunchtime temperature here in Philly. Quite odd weather we're having right now. Satellite, you see all that cloud cover with the rain. Here's a bigger perspective on where that rain's going to go. It's going to pull out of here later tonight. Let's take a look at Futurecast. That looks like it's not behaving there. Sometimes try and pull these in from the work that our meteorologists have done. Sometimes works, sometimes not. Flood watch will continue until 6 p.m. for much of the 95 corridor and over into central New Jersey along the coast. Rain becomes heavier, winds pick up, gusts to 40 miles per hour. Let's get you that last point again. And drier and cooler Friday into the weekend. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. 50s for a high today. You see that arrow because it's going to be dropping. We will get colder. 5 on our weather forecast by the numbers today. Tomorrow looks like a 7, although it'll be breezy and colder at 37. Sunny and cold Saturday to start the weekend, 32 degrees for a high, overnight low of 20. Mostly cloudy, 43 on Sunday. Monday looks sunny and chilly at 39. Chance of an AM mix and PM sun on Tuesday with a high of 48. And then comes the Arctic blast, 27 for a high on Wednesday. Looks like Kevin McCarthy of the House Republicans is speaking right now at the moment. Let's listen in to what he has to say. I'm sure he's talking about the shutdown. Looks like Steve Scalise is standing right behind him. Let's listen in.
Harvey, there's debt ceiling, there's CR. We'll worry about the wall at some other point. How do you respond to people who said, you had 2 years to work alongside this president to make this happen, and repeatedly you chose not to in favor of other things, and only now you're putting up this fight?
All right, first of all, I disagree with the premise of your question. Because, no, we did put up the fight. If you look in the House of what we moved to pass for the wall and border security, but unfortunately in this House, the rules of the Senate are different. It takes 60 votes. So it wasn't I denying the American public border security. It was the Democrats over on the Senate side. Every time we got to that brink that they said no. So no, it's the same action they're taking today when after we had passed a bill. But when you look today,
like we're still experiencing the same issues we were earlier. The rain is impacting our satellites. Did switch over to a web feed for a little while, but looks like we're still having the satellite issue. So we're going to sign off for now. Thank you very much for joining Fox 29 News Now. We're with you weekdays from 10 a.m. till usually for an hour or two. We bring you the latest live events that are occurring, as well as updates on stories we've been covering on air and online. You're looking again at Ultimate Doppler. It's quite wet out there. If you have to go out and about, I hope you stay dry. Have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow, Friday, at 10 a.m. Thanks for watching.